Sure, there was a handshake and some smiling photo ops, but behind the scenes? Canada pulled off a masterstroke. While the headlines celebrated a fair deal, the real story is buried in the fine print, and it flips the script entirely. The US walked in thinking it had the upper hand. But somehow, Canada walked out with more leverage, stronger protections, and fewer concessions than anyone saw coming. So how did that happen? How did one of the world's smaller powers outmaneuver a global giant, and why didn't anyone catch it in time? Spoiler alert, this wasn't just about tariffs or milk quotas. This was a quiet chess match, and Canada played it like a pro. Stick around, because this balanced deal? Yeah, it was anything but. Number 10, a surprise e-commerce jackpot. Everyone was bracing for impact. Small business owners worried about tighter rules, online shoppers feared higher import costs, and many Canadians just assumed the US would use the new trade deal to clamp down even harder on digital commerce. But then, something totally unexpected slid under the radar. Tucked deep in the fine print of the updated agreement was a change so game-changing, it quietly rewired the entire landscape of online shopping in Canada, and barely anyone noticed. Here's what happened: Canada raised its de minimis threshold. That's the value under which imported goods can enter without duties or taxes. It jumped from just $20 to 40 for sales tax, and up to $150, yes, US dollars, for customs duties. For a country that used to keep cross-border shopping on a tight leash, that's a massive shift. Why does this matter? Because it means Canadians can now buy more from international online retailers without getting hit with surprise fees or long delays at customs. Faster shipping, fewer hidden charges, and way more shopping freedom. Total win for consumers. But it doesn't stop there. This is a huge boost for Canadian small businesses too. With fewer import headaches and simplified customs processes, they can access cheaper supplies, scale quicker, and finally compete on a global level, without drowning in red tape. And here's the kicker: US negotiators probably brushed this off as a minor concession. But in reality, it was a digital goldmine for Canada. It fuels spending power, supports entrepreneurs, and brings in more products at better prices. So while the headlines were stuck on cars and cheese, Canada walked away with one of the smartest, most forward-thinking e-commerce wins in recent trade history, silently reshaping its digital economy in a single, bold move. Number 9, Chapter 19, Canada's quiet courtroom power play. The US wanted it gone, badly. Chapter 19, the part of the deal that allows for independent dispute panels, was on Washington's chopping block. Experts said Canada would cave. American officials were practically warming up their victory tweets. But here's the twist: Canada didn't fold. Not even close. Instead, Canada stood its ground and walked away with one of the most powerful tools in the entire agreement: the right to third-party dispute resolution. Why is that such a big deal? Because without Chapter 19, if the US decided to slap tariffs on things like Canadian lumber, steel, or aluminum, Canada would have to fight back in US courts, where, let's be real, Canada loses 9 times out of 10. The playing field wouldn't just be uneven, it'd be tilted, rigged, and slippery. But thanks to this little-known clause staying put, Canada kept its right to neutral arbitration. So when Washington crosses the line, Canada has the legal power to push back, and actually win. Think about it: why would a smaller country go into trade battles without a shield? Chapter 19 is that shield. And while the headlines focused on more high-profile wins and losses, Canada quietly held on to something far more critical: its legal muscle. And here's the wild part: most Americans still don't realize what just happened. But Canada? It just protected its industries and its future, all with a single paragraph buried in the back of the deal. Number 8. Canada's secret weapon in the EV race, dirt. The US had big plans. It wanted to lead the global electric vehicle market, and fast. Automakers were in a frenzy, hunting down the rare minerals needed to power the next generation of cars. And Canada? Well, most people figured it'd be the quiet neighbor watching from the sidelines. After all, China controls over 60% of the world's lithium refining. The US doesn't have nearly enough nickel, cobalt, or graphite. And Canada? People thought it didn't have the political muscle, or the leverage, to even compete for a spot at the EV table. But then, Canada played a card no one saw coming. It used its own ground, literally, to outmaneuver Washington. Beneath Canadian soil lies a jackpot of critical minerals, lithium in Quebec, cobalt in Ontario, rare earth elements in the Northwest Territories. And here's the kicker, the US needed them. Badly. So, during trade talks and clean energy negotiations, Canada pulled a smart move. It locked in a spot under the US Inflation Reduction Act. That means electric vehicles built with Canadian-sourced minerals still qualify for the full $7,500 US EV tax credit. That's huge. Why? Because those tax breaks only apply if the key materials come from countries with a free trade agreement, and Canada checks both boxes, the trade deal and the resources. Suddenly, those overlooked Canadian mining towns? They're no longer just surviving. They're critical. Canadian companies are now baked into the future of American car manufacturing. Ottawa didn't just sell rocks, it leveraged geology into serious economic influence. This isn't about digging in the dirt. This is next-level strategy. While the US was laser-focused on leading the EV race, Canada quietly became the one holding the minerals they couldn't win without. Number 7. Canada just dragged its trade systems into the 21st century, and no one saw it coming. Let's be real, cross-border shipping used to be a total mess. Outdated paperwork, endless delays, and customs processes that felt like they were built in the fax machine era. For small Canadian businesses trying to grow online, it was a nightmare. The rules were so old school, they practically needed a time machine just to keep up. And most people figured Canada would stay stuck that way. But here's the surprise, buried in the new trade deal, Canada secured a massive upgrade that changes everything about how business gets done today. So what exactly changed? Canada pushed hard for modernized customs systems, think single window clearance, real-time tracking, and digital-friendly forms. That means fewer delays, faster border crossings, and way lower costs for anyone trading physical or digital goods. Now, instead of waiting days for a shipment to crawl through customs, small businesses can get approvals in hours. Electronic signatures? Check. Streamlined forms? Check. It's like someone finally hit refresh on the entire process. And that's not even the best part. Canada also locked in duty-free status for digital exports. That means no tariffs on things like ebooks, online courses, apps, streaming content, basically, the entire digital economy. Think about what that means. A Canadian YouTuber, graphic designer, or software developer can now sell their digital products to US customers tariff-free. Protected by trade law. No extra fees. No barriers. Just clean, open access to the biggest market in the world. This isn't just about saving time. It's about opening doors. In a world where digital goods are growing faster than physical ones, this is a strategic power move. So while the headlines obsessed over steel and dairy, Canada was quietly building a digital launchpad for millions of entrepreneurs. Still think Canada got outplayed? This clause alone proves otherwise. Number 6. Canada's smart dairy defense, minimal concessions, major win. Everyone was bracing for a dairy disaster. Milk prices were expected to spike. Family farms were predicted to vanish. And many assumed Canada would have to dismantle its decades-old supply management system just to keep its spot at the table. But here's the twist, that never happened. So how did Canada manage to fend off US pressure, protect its farmers, and still claim a victory? Canada ceded just 3.59% of its dairy market. That's it. In return, it kept price controls, quota systems, and essentially all of its domestic stability intact. Meanwhile, Washington walked away thinking it scored a major win. But in reality, Canada made a strategic sacrifice, just enough to appease the US while preserving its dairy industry's foundation. Most people missed that nuance. Did you catch it? Number 5. Canada's automotive trump card, hidden in a side letter. Flashback to 2018. A looming trade war, with a US president threatening to slap tariffs on every single imported car. Canadian auto plants were already slowing down. Production lines were stalling. Cities like Windsor and Oshawa braced for disaster. Analysts warned of mass layoffs. Entire communities feared collapse. And to be honest, most people believed Canada had no leverage, none, against a US administration dead set on protecting Made in America. But here's what nobody saw coming, the side letter. While all eyes were glued to dairy quotas and steel tariffs, Canada was working behind the scenes, securing what might be one of the smartest trade insurance policies in its history. A quiet, powerful side agreement that protected Canada's auto industry from future US national security tariffs. How big is this move? Huge. It guarantees Canada can export up to 2.6 million vehicles per year to the US, tariff-free. That's more than Canada even manufactures right now. Oh, and it also locks in $32.4 billion worth of auto parts exports, untouched by any future protectionist taxes. Let's break that down. If the US ever targets countries like Mexico, Japan, or the EU with auto tariffs again, and let's face it, it probably will, Canada is safe. No surprise duties. No production shutdowns. No sudden job losses. This deal means Windsor doesn't become a ghost town overnight. Ontario plants stay running, even while others might be forced to close. All thanks to a strategic, behind-the-curtain move no one saw coming. And here's the wild part, hardly anyone talked about it. The media focused on what Canada gave up. But this? This was one of the most clever, defensive plays in the entire agreement. This wasn't just about trade, it was chess. And Canada didn't just show up with pawns, it brought the queen to the board. Number 4, the IP power move, Canada's creative trade-off. At first glance, this one looked like a loss. Prescription drug costs ticking up, big pharma flexing its muscles, and digital creators worried their work might slip through legal cracks. Critics were quick to pounce. The trade deal extended data protection for biologic drugs from 8 years to 10, and the outrage was loud. People warned this would mean higher healthcare costs, slower access to generic meds, and way too much influence for US pharmaceutical giants. But here's the twist that almost everyone missed. What if Canada chose to give a little ground here, to gain something far more powerful in return? See, while the headlines zeroed in on the biologics clause, Canada was quietly locking in long-term wins in areas that could shape the future: digital copyright, intellectual property enforcement, and creative rights across borders. What does that mean in real life? It means Canadian app developers, authors, musicians, even AI startups, now have IP protections that align with US standards. In some cases, they're even stronger. So, imagine this: a game developer in Toronto can launch globally, knowing their code is protected. A singer-songwriter in Vancouver can release a track across North America, confident their rights won't get lost in translation. And a Montreal-based tech company can patent breakthrough AI and license it internationally, without worrying about loopholes or exploitation. That's not just legal security. That's creative freedom. That's economic power. And while biologic drug pricing is still a hot-button issue, the actual impact on Canadian healthcare costs? Still being debated. Plus, Canada still retains full control over how it sets its national drug prices, something many forgot to mention. So the real question is, did Canada lose on IP? Or did it take a strategic short-term hit to secure long-term dominance in the industries that matter most in tomorrow's economy? In a world powered by digital content and proprietary tech, this may have been one of the boldest, smartest bets Canada made in the entire deal. Number 3. Canada just hardwired itself into the US energy system, permanently. Back when oil prices were tanking and pipelines were getting cancelled like bad TV shows, it really looked like Canada's energy sector was in deep trouble. Alberta was bleeding jobs, the Keystone XL pipeline got scrapped, and US lawmakers were talking tough on energy independence. The vibe? Grim. People worried the US, Canada's biggest energy customer, was about to walk away. But while the headlines focused on protests and shutdowns, something way more important was happening behind the scenes. Canada was playing the long game, and it quietly locked in energy grid and pipeline integration with the US through the updated trade framework. We're talking legally guaranteed cross-border flows of electricity and crude oil, embedded directly into the agreement. Why is this such a big deal? Because right now, over 4 million barrels of oil per day flow from Canada into the US. More than any other country, even Saudi Arabia. That oil keeps American cities running and stabilizes entire energy grids. And that's not all. Canadian hydropower? It keeps the lights on for about 6 million US homes. Picture what would happen if that got cut off: blackouts, price spikes, grid chaos. Canada made sure that never happens. Through updated trade rules and energy side agreements, pipelines like Enbridge Line 5 and major electricity sharing setups, like Quebec sending power to New England, are now protected by trade law. That means US states can't just shut off the tap during political disputes or local flare-ups. This isn't just about energy, it's about leverage. Canada didn't just save its exports, it cemented its place as a core pillar in the US energy ecosystem. It protected jobs back home, kept its pipelines flowing, and secured long-term relevance, even as the world moves toward a greener future. Think Canada got sidelined in the deal? Think again. Because this isn't just oil and electricity. It's power. In every sense of the word. Number 2, Canada just put global currency games on notice. For years, currency manipulation was the dirty secret of international trade. Countries would quietly tweak their exchange rates, making their own exports cheaper while yours suddenly became more expensive, and there was nothing you could do about it. And Canada? Had no protection. No legal panel. No enforcement tool. Not even a place to complain. Meanwhile, the US, with its massive financial clout, could do the same. If the US dollar surged, the loonie dropped, and boom, Canadian exporters got crushed, and everyday prices back home skyrocketed overnight. Economists warned Canada had zero say in how these currency wars played out. But in the latest trade deal, that all changed. Canada helped introduce something that has never existed before in any North American trade pact, a fully enforceable currency exchange rate chapter. What does that actually mean? It means all three countries, Canada, the US, and Mexico, must now publicly disclose their foreign exchange reserves, monetary policy actions, and any interventions in the currency market. No more smoke and mirrors. No more secret rate shifts. No more behind-the-scenes moves to game the system. And here's the big one: if any country tries to manipulate its currency unfairly to gain a trade edge, there's now a legal path to challenge it. For a country like Canada, one that doesn't have the economic firepower of the US or China, this is huge. It's about transparency, trust, and defending Canadian jobs. Think about it. The next time a Canadian-made car part ships to Detroit, or a high-tech turbine from Quebec lands in Texas, the price won't get quietly undercut by some shady currency trick. That's protection in its purest form. This move wasn't just about today. It was about preparing for every future crisis, every market dip, every trade war, every manipulated moment that could harm Canadian workers and businesses. While most people were caught up in headlines about cheese, oil, and aluminum, Canada was rewriting the rules of money itself. And let's be honest, currency might seem boring, but in global trade, it's one of the biggest weapons out there. And now, for the first time ever, there are rules. Number 1, the labor rule that changed everything. Factories shutting down in Mexico, stagnant wages across parts of America, and headlines full of accusations, forced labor, unsafe conditions, backdoor deals. For years, it felt like the rules of trade rewarded the worst behavior. But then came a twist no one saw coming. You see, when the new trade deal was announced, most people thought it was just NAFTA with a fresh coat of paint. But buried deep in the fine print was a powerful clause, and guess who helped make it happen? Yep, Canada. And it wasn't just a feel-good gesture. For the first time ever in a North American trade agreement, there's a legally binding anti-corruption chapter. We're talking serious stuff, targeting bribery, money laundering, shady business deals that favor the elite while the workers get left behind. And now, if a country's industries are benefiting from that kind of corruption, boom. That's grounds for a legal trade challenge. But here's where it really gets bold. Thanks to Canada's push, there's now a rule that says, if you want your car to qualify for duty-free trade, at least 40% of it must be built by workers making $16 per hour or more. Let that sink in. No more exploiting dirt-cheap labor to flood the market. No more race to the bottom. Automakers are now faced with a choice: pay fair wages, or lose your trade perks. That's not just policy, that's strategy. It shields Canadian and American workers from being undercut. It forces ethical investment. And it sends a loud message to the global market: if you want access to North America, you play fair, or you don't play at all. So while everyone was worried about more jobs being outsourced, Canada quietly built a firewall, one made of fair wages, human rights, and real accountability. And here's the kicker: this move could ripple far beyond North America. It's a model. A warning. A new standard. Still think Canada was the quiet sidekick in the trade war? Nah. It was the architect of the future.